Yasser Louati. Yasser is a French human rights and civil liberties activist. Yasser, thank you so much for joining us. People who watch France from abroad consider the French to be one of the most vocal populations in the world in terms of being ready to come out onto the streets and strike for any reason. Anything they disagree with, they'll come out onto the streets. That's an impression that people have. Is this strike justified?
Well, actually, that's, to be fair, an Anglo-Saxon view of the French population. We have, of course, in the general idea that, French people go on strike every now and then, which is not true. Now, we have had all these massive so-called reforms going on, and the French population did not go on strike. It still kind of worked and dealt with it. Now, what we are witnessing with Emmanuel Macron is that he's only harvesting the contempt he has been seeding for the past 3 to 4 years since he became a national figure. Now, to bounce back on what Elena Casas said, the pension reform that Emmanuel Macron is pushing for is, yes, indeed, to create a one universal system, but where some activities or some sectors have stuck to their, how can I say, higher reforms or higher pensions soon as they go on retirement. The government now is trying to bring down the benchmark. So yes, we will have one common pension system, but the value of it will be much, much lower. So what has happened is that in the past, of course, the railway workers and liberal workers like lawyers and doctors, etc., do have higher pensions. But now people are asking, hey, Emmanuel, if you want to bring everybody on this at the same level, why bring everybody down and not everybody up? And that's why everybody today is sticking with this strike.
Okay, listen, I think most people accept that Emmanuel Macron and France itself, it's not necessarily Macron's fault, has a problem in terms of the money it has available to it, right? It's using a lot of its income to service existing debt. Emmanuel Macron seems to be trying to reform the country and to modernize the country, if you could look at it that way. If he lowers pension contributions, obviously he'll save his government money. Over a year ago, he tried to introduce this new fuel tax because, again, in terms of modernization, he wanted to use that money to make France a greener economy. And every time he tries to do this, people push back against him. Do they not understand that his reforms are trying to update the French system?
No, well, actually, Emmanuel Macron is not updating the French system. He's trying to privatize the whole public sector. First, you have about 86 billion euros in uncollected tax money he refuses to take care of. Why? Because of so-called tax evasion or manipulating the loopholes in our tax system. He cut off the tax on the super wealthy in terms of the greener economy. He actually allowed for companies to be held unaccountable for devastating exploitation of the earth and our natural resources. So that's not true. I'm sorry to say it, Adnan. Now, what's happening is that Emmanuel Macron, to him, is that the solution is a privatization. And what he's been doing for the past 30 years is for him to cut the budgets of the public service, to lower the standards, and then have the people being unhappy, and then bring the solution like Margaret Thatcher did in the UK. Hey, we have a solution, is privatization. What's going to happen with privatization, as we saw it, for example, with electricity or the telecom service, is that prices will indeed go higher, while people's incomes will either remain stagnant or go lower. So we cannot speak about modernizing the country. It's about the economic model Emmanuel Macron is trying to pursue that has failed both in the UK and in the US. His idea is that what's good for the big banks and the corporations is good for the economy by following the dogma of trickle-down economics. It failed in Chile, it failed in the US, it failed in the UK. And of course, today, French people are seeing themselves as the scapegoats or the victims of the so-called policies that will indeed, according to Emmanuel Macron, modernize the country. You don't modernize the country by selling everything to the private sector. It does not work. We sold our major corporations. We are trying to sell our railways. We sold Air France, and everything is not working as planned. Now, there is the realities of what's happening on the ground and the ideology being pursued by Emmanuel Macron. And today, again, this strike is not about refusing modernization of the economy, but refusing the model being followed by Emmanuel Macron, just like Jacques Chirac did 20 years ago.
Yasser, so interesting to hear your analysis. Thank you so much indeed. Yasser Louati speaking to us from Paris.